Today, I am 2,000 days sober from alcohol, and I would like to share with you probably the biggest value learning point I've made from getting sober. So, I used to drink 130 plus units of alcohol a week, but I didn't particularly want to go sober. I never really even considered it. But I also lost 60 pounds in weight back in 2015-ish after years of yo-yo dieting. I quit smoking back in 2004 after first time I got caught smoking by my parents. I was 10. I was a really young smoker. And I used to gamble till 4 o'clock in the morning most nights. So I've had a history of addiction, really. And then May the 17th, 2020, I stopped drinking. And it was literally 2 days before, like 3 days before, I was not considering stopping drinking. And then 2 days before that day, I said, I think I'm going to get drunk on Sunday and I'm going to stop drinking. And it was one of those days where you could go out on the streets during the lockdowns and sort of have a street party. There was something going on there. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, I'm going to have a few beers that day. In fact, a lot of beers that day, and that's going to be the last time I drink. It was just so bizarre. I kind of felt like I didn't need it anymore. So, from my history of addiction, and now being clean of addictions, really. I mean, I use a phone, but I'm not like a heavy phone user. I still eat chocolate, but not like I used to. I like my weight now. Like my BMI is like 25 or whatever. I'm in the healthy range. So I kind of consider myself clean of addictive behaviours now. Now, the point that I'd really like to say about my journey, so this doesn't mean it's fact, is that I used to think of addiction as there's this substance, and if you are of a certain disposition, it gets to you and you become addicted to it. And because of how I quit my addictions and my experience since getting sober and clean, I see that very differently now. So what I see actually happens is for me, suffering from, I think the best description I've heard is complex trauma. So complex trauma means just like a variety of things that happen to you that cause you stress, trauma, affect you deeply, and you're probably not aware of them. And what happens is you're suffering, your well-being suffering, maybe your mental health suffering, you're just struggling in life, and your body finds something that gives you relief. So for me, all those things kind of gave me relief. Smoking, drinking especially, gambling, chocolate. And I would be using all day. So back in the day, I used to get up and I just used to smoke all day, and then as soon as I'd finish work, start drinking as well. So I was drinking and smoking. Then when I stopped smoking, I was eating all day, and then when I finished work, I'd go home, go straight out. So I'd literally get home from work, shower, jeans on, to the pub till I got thrown out, home, fall asleep, drunk, wake up, go to work. That was like my cycle of life. And at work, I'd be eating. So I was always doing something like that. And then when we had children, I wasn't going to the pub in the evenings. I was still drinking canned beer at home, but that's when I started gambling then, because I needed something to occupy my mind. Occupy my mind, give me relief from my mind is probably more the thing. Give me relief from the suffering. So how this became super obvious to me. So let me tell you the first thing that made me think it was more like this. It's more of a complex trauma thing, causes us to become addiction, not the substance itself. The substance does something that aids in dealing with complex trauma. The first thing that made me think it was more like that was how people always say when you give up smoking, you always put on weight. And people like try and say, oh, that's because of habit or whatever, and you need a new habit. Why would you need a new habit? You need a new habit because you need something to give you relief from your suffering, from your trauma response, basically. So I went from being a smoker and drinker to a eater and drinker. And so that's the first part, is that I noticed that I had to exchange one addiction for another, and it was because I needed relief, it turned out. Then the second thing was, when I stopped drinking, which was very organic kind of thing. I didn't like go, right, I need to white knuckle this. It was kind of like, after all the self-work I'd done so much inner work. That's really how I lost the weight, and how I quit gambling was just, I was becoming more at peace with myself or with life. And the stopping drinking was a surprise to me. It was like, oh, right, okay, I don't feel like I need this anymore. So when I stopped drinking, things were great for a period of time. But then my mental health started suffering. And there came a point where I was not like craving a drink, but I was starting to have the conscious thought, would the best thing be for me and the people around me if I start drinking again? Because the drinking gave me an escape. It gave me some freedom from the mental health worries. Now that, I think, is really, really important for people to see. It's really important for me to see, is that I could be driven to consciously think, not crave, that it would be a good idea for me to start drinking again, just for my mental health and for the people around me. If you really think about that, it shows how much suffering with mental health pushes you to find ways of dealing with it. Now, as it turns out, because I didn't want to start drinking again, I was suffering with my mental health. It was getting worse and worse. As it turns out, that drove me to a point, which I talk about in other videos, where I had to get some help. Or the option I took was to get some help, rather than stop drinking again, or rather than to do something worse. And then when I got help, what then happened was I started finding all the other ways to, one, deal with mental health in the moment, but also start doing the recovery from my complex trauma, doing the healing from my complex trauma. So starting to realise what was going on for me, what was the inner child work I had to do, what was the reparenting work I had to do, all these different sorts of therapy, I suppose you would call them, that have now enabled me to take control of my mental health and start going from, my mental health was dipping until now it's gone past there and it's on the way up again. And I've got all these strategies that I got from therapy. Luckily, fantastic therapist. Thank you, Fiona, if you ever watch this, helping me learn how to change my unhelpful thinking patterns, how to understand my emotions, how to use like an emotions wheel, so many different tactics that have and tools that have helped me learn to control my mental health, improve my mental health, just have more well-being, take care of myself, all that sort of thing, such that I can't see drinking being an issue ever again, and all the other addictions. So I guess, just in summary, to say that all those addictions were looking after me when I was suffering with complex trauma that I didn't realise at the time. So I'm kind of grateful for them now, that they helped me get through. They definitely did a job for me. And then once I'd got to a certain stage where I had more peace in my life, more peace with myself, I'd given up the addictions, but then the job wasn't done. I still had work to do. I had to go back and look at the complex trauma that I was dealing with, and find out more about myself and get tools to deal with the mental health that had actually been underlying all these addictions, but still hadn't quite been worked on enough. I'd obviously worked on it enough such that I felt I could stop drinking, but it hadn't been worked on enough that such that without these addictive behaviours and addictions, I could just be fine. So I'm very grateful to my addictions. I'm very grateful to alcohol even. I'm grateful that I quit. I'm grateful that I got the help, and thank you to people around me who helped me do that. And I'm very grateful to particularly Fiona, my therapist, in helping me turn things back up and getting the tools that have enabled me to now be 2,000 days sober from alcohol, which is basically my last addiction, and hopefully to live in this fulfilled, peaceful, enjoyable life that I seem to be living at the moment. So I hope that helps you if you're thinking of trying to get sober or beat an addiction, to see that it's not just about willpower and discipline and just going to zero with alcohol or counting your calories with food or whatever. There's probably work to be done that caused you to go there in the first place. Any questions, let me know. Keep going.